There he is, Tracy Chapman's biggest fan, jamming Fast Car every day of his life.
Yeah, your words, not mine. Yeah, can't say that. Can't say as much. I've expanded in the music I listen to, but I've not expanded there yet.
Did you even know that song?
No. I'm not aware. And now I mean I saw it all over Twitter yesterday. I was late to tune into.
You know Stairway to Heaven. Now you know Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah,
you know Freebird, right?
Freebird. Okay, yeah. I've heard. Yeah.
Okay. You know Back in Black, right, from AC/DC.
Yes, definitely. I even have that one in my songs. So.
Okay, I'm just throwing stuff out there, like that, like Fast Car, Tracy Chapman. Huh? What? Huh? It's that song ever since it came out in the '80s, back in the MTV days. I never understood the craziness for the song then, and I don't understand how it's still and like she's like looked at like some legend. It's like, yo, you came up with a mediocre song that a couple people liked. Okay, wow, whatever, bro. It's just.
Was that the one hit? Was that a one hit wonder back then?
Yes, that's her one hit wonder.
Yeah, huh?
Chapman didn't have any other hits, dude. None. That was her one hit, and she got Taylor Swift dancing throughout the entire song. So I will say this: I don't think much.
Bigger thing, man.
I don't think much of that song, but I will say Luke Combs actually added to the song. He made it actually even bearable. He actually improved it. In fact, he should re-record it, and maybe it'll actually be half decent with Luke Combs doing it, because really, I mean, she can put me to sleep in a fast car. And really, how do you fall asleep in a fast car? You kind of want to be awake in a fast car.
Right.
Unless it's Tracy Chapman, then you're going to be asleep in a fast car is what's going to happen.
All right. Even the clip, I gotta watch it. I tuned in for bits and pieces of the Grammys. I saw a bunch of Twitter or X hoopla over that. So then I just missed it. But yeah, I guess I gotta watch it and see what I'm missing.
Yeah. The Luke Combs one, I will say, I got to give him props there. I'll give Luke Combs some props for bettering that song. All right, Anthony Weaver. I trip out on the whole hire thing because just between you and me, I don't have a problem with Josh Boyer. I didn't have a problem with Fangio, and I'm not going to probably have a problem with Weaver. My issues are all on offense anyway. So to me, that's really but everybody, Weaver might do this. He could be good at that, that, whatever. Your thoughts on the hire?
Yeah, I mean, I like the hire. It seems like an up-and-coming guy. You see the way he communicates with players that he's pretty intense. He brings that competitive fire. And what Mike McDaniel mentioned, which I think is at the forefront of his mind, is the coach as a player developer. I think the two guys, McDaniel and him, they see eye to eye in that respect. So there was a reason that was played up in his statement for sure. So, and I don't think that was necessarily any shade at whether Vic Fangio looks at player development the same way. I'm sure all coaches value player development, but just that it's more so at the forefront of what he wants to do. And we did have one stint as a defensive coordinator. It wasn't that great. The Houston Texans in 2020, in a season that went awry with a unit that didn't have much outside of J.J. Watt. They were 27th in points against. He ran sort of a lot of single high looks, more aggressive defense, and I think he will run. Now with the Ravens under Mike Macdonald, they were a lot of the same looks that you saw, this Fangio scheme that's sort of sweeping the league. So I think we'll see more of that. Maybe it's some kind of combinations. Maybe Weaver's somewhere in between. We won't know for sure until sort of we get him on record, talk to him, and ask him what kind of defense he envisions running. But I imagine he will see a lot of the too high shells and it's some quarters coverage, cover six, all that stuff. In sort of an in-between, a nice balance between what he did run in 2020 with the Texans and then what the Ravens have run since he was associate head coach and defensive line coach there.
Yeah, I have no problems with the hire, bro. The hire will be fine. I'm sure he's going to be a damn good, defensive coordinator overall. You look at some of the things that they have to do on defense and re-signing certain guys. Where are you at with Wilson and others? What do you think is going to happen here?
The sound was kind of drowning out. What were you asking, sir?
I said that I expect Weaver to be fine, but what do you think is going to happen with some of his players now on defense, like Wilkins and others? Who's coming back and who is not? What have
Yeah,
you been able to gather?
yeah. Wilkins is at the forefront of that. So I mean, he's a player developer, and look, the Dolphins also they just came out of the Senior Bowl. You have assistant defensive line coach Kenny Baker actually coaching the Senior Bowl D lineman on one of the sides. Austin Clark, defensive line coach, was there. So if they're looking at these defensive linemen in the draft, then that's one way they can go. Where if Wilkins' price is something that they can't meet, then they could let him walk. Hey, they could also franchise him. That's going to be pretty expensive in the short term, but you could. So you have options there. You could go Wilkins, franchise 1 year, and then we're looking for that replacement in the draft that you could sort of develop over a year, where maybe the next guy is a rotational D lineman that then becomes that guy next to Zach Sealer. Maybe that guy that you take high in the draft has to come in right away and be that guy that's starting and is expected to contribute from the start. Or you are able to land Wilkins long term, and then Weaver. I'm sure he'd love that if Weaver, a defensive line guy who has played the position, coached the position, and then he has Wilkins and Zach Sealer. That combination, salt and pepper, locked up for some time. I'm sure he would love to have that. So that's a route you can take. It's going to be difficult under the salary cap and where the Dolphins are, especially for future seasons. There are ways to get Wilkins in team friendly early in the deal, and then you're just kind of screwed later where you've pushed back all your money anyway. But there are options, and the Dolphins have been looking at a lot of D linemen for the upcoming draft, so that could be one way to go in. Whether it may not be the first round, but could be second or third round pick.
So you're leaning more to where I'm at now. Finally, right? That Wilkins is gone, right?
There are avenues to get him back, but it's going to be challenging, and especially when he just had the 9-sack season, then he might have priced himself out based on doing that. The Dolphins didn't meet the price before he had the 9-sack season. Now he's got those sacks, and what he wanted before, he's going to want more now. So it's not okay.
Yeah. He's gone, bro. He's gone. I'm telling you. I've been telling you guys for weeks now. He's gone.
And he seemed to speak like it.
Out.
That last interview that he had in Kansas City upon the elimination, some of the ways that he phrased certain answers seemed to lean that way for sure.
He knows he's gone, dude. He's going to price himself out. He's going to want his money, and I get it that he's going to want his money. It's very understandable. I think they're not as impressed with the sacks because most of the sacks came against bad teams. It's one of the things that I've been talking about because I think that's what's going to end up hurting him in their conversations, that those sacks weren't against the elite teams. Only Buffalo was the only one. Outside of that, everything else was against lesser teams, and that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, so that's one way to look at those numbers. But then, I mean, the sacks there, the numbers are there. So any player and their representation, they're going to point to that. They're going to say, hey, listen, what he needed was to show he could provide an interior pass rush after the previous years of showing you everything else. He didn't have those sack numbers the way the other defensive tackles that have gotten big money, the way they racked up the sacks. Well, now he finally has them. And so – and it's just going to be sort of this moving of the goalpost where it's not, okay, the Dolphins, they needed to see the sacks. Now they see them. Now they could pay the price that was talked about before. No, now Wilkins' price is also going to go up. So it's sort of both sides are just going to keep moving in that direction and probably never meet.
No, you are right. And that's the thing. And again, let me pull this up because I want to pull this up for you to make sure. And this is why I think some of these things are going to come into play, and they and that's why I mentioned it to you. Here it is. All right. I'm gonna pull up his game logs. All right. Outside of the sack with the Bills, half a sack against the Jets, a sack against Tennessee, 2 sacks against the Jets. This is 2.5 sacks against the worst offensive line in the NFL. I'm just being factual here.
The only O-line that had more starting combinations than the Dolphins.
Right. New England, 1 sack. Again, not a great offensive line. 2 against Carolina. Not a great offensive line. Half a sack against the Giants. Not a great offensive line. And another sack against New England. Not a great offensive line. So you look at all his sacks, only 1 came against a legit team, and that was Buffalo. And it was a great play. Not only was it a sack, it was a strip and a fumble recovery. I mean, it was a sweet ass play on his part, and I give him a lot of credit. But I think that that's going to be what they're going to hold against him, in these negotiations. They're going to say, yeah, you got the sacks, but you didn't show up against Dallas, and you didn't show up against Baltimore, and you didn't show up against Kansas City, and you didn't show up against Philadelphia. And that's what they're going to say. They're going to say, in most of the big games, including the first Buffalo game, you also didn't show up. And so I think that's what's going to end up hurting him in this process, where he's going to ask for 24, 25, and they're going to say, yeah, we're kind of where we're at last year. Maybe we added 500,000 or something, or $1 million. But I just don't think there's going to be much movement because the sacks didn't come against the big boys. That's just me.
Yeah, even I remember that first Buffalo game. I think he was without a tackle deep into that game, like maybe through 3 quarters. And I'm looking at the game log now. He only had 2 tackles, 1 solo, 1 assist in that game. So, where I remember specifically his impact was not there that first game against Buffalo. And then some of the other major games, those bigger games. I mean, he contributed to that whole narrative all season that the Dolphins couldn't beat the other contenders.
Right. Basically, yes. He played along the same lines of not really playing well against contenders, except for the Bills, where he actually, came up with
the second game,
with a big time play. What do you think?
That was kind of like the last good play. That was like the last good play that the Dolphins had, because I think the punt return came later. It was early in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken, and then the punt return came, and then everything just snowballed after that. Offense couldn't move. Tua with the pick at the end. Allen drives him down. So.
How you feeling about the first rounder right now? What direction do you think they're going to end up going?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of mock drafts that like that Jackson Powers Johnson, which, hey, if the Dolphins may very well need an interior offensive lineman, so that could be a way. If they can't bring back Robert Hunt, if Connor Williams is not there, if they can't meet on a price because Dolphins don't want to pay it with, both their salary cap situation and him coming off the injury, and maybe Williams still wants something that's representative of what he was doing before the injury, then that could lead to them not reaching an agreement. So if either or, which it's unlikely, I think that both of them are going to be back, then that's one area is the interior offensive line, and Powers Johnson seems like a good fit for that spot in the first round. So.
It won't be Powers. Stop it, folks. He's not going to fall to 21. Okay, folks. I would. They're going to find a way to get a tight end this year. I guarantee you.
They need to hit a tight end. Yeah,
they will get one, but it won't be Powers. Bro. He's going to be gone before.
Oh yeah. You're talking about Brock Bowers. Yeah. Since I just said Powers Johnson, I thought you were talking about him. But no, Bowers.
No, I keep getting DMs and tweets and texts, and we got to get.
He's far gone.
He's not going to be available at 21, dude. So forget about it. They wanted Laporta, and he just they couldn't find a way to trade up, and he just didn't fall to them in the second round, and so then they went in the direction of Cam Smith, and so they've been trying. I think that's one of the priorities this year is to get that third playmaker. And a lot of people talk about receiver. No. It's going to be a tight end. They're going to finally get that playmaking tight end.
You think in the first round?
No.
Okay, just in In the first few rounds, yeah.
No. Trade, free agency, draft. I don't know how, but
some way or the other.
They will find a way to get a playmaking tight end. I really believe that. Yeah, I don't know.
Agree with you there.
I'm not gonna tell you exactly how, because I don't know how everything's gonna work out right now. You know what I mean? But I know that has to be on their priority list, because it's an element that is missing from that offense. Mike McDaniel really cannot call his real offense until he has a playmaking tight end that he can count on. Then there'll be more balance to what he wants to do, because that's what that system is.
Yeah. And a lot of these draft projections are they get so complicated because you're looking at team needs at the end of a season, but then free agency and trades occur before that. The Dolphins have a track record of addressing those major needs before the draft even gets there the last couple seasons. So like 2 years ago, we were looking at all the wide receivers that the Dolphins might select with that first round pick. And then sure enough, they trade for Tyreek Hill. So then all that research we were doing on all those wide receivers in the draft, one, the draft picks that could have been used for those receivers were sent to the Chiefs for Tyreek Hill, and two, you have Tyreek Hill. And then they also brought in Cedric Wilson, already had Jalen Waddle, so you knew they were not doing much else there. Then last year, well, they still ended up going cornerback, but the big trade before going into March and whatnot, Jalen Ramsey. So then you completely go away from cornerback. You don't think they're going cornerback in the draft, but then Chris Grier, in his best player available mindset on his board, then he still goes with Cam Smith. So a lot of it is unpredictable. And then and Chris Grier is going to go through that best player available approach. Whether he thinks it's an immediate position of need or not, he's going to draft the guy that he believes is the one that he wants for the long haul anyway.
Yep, I'm with you there. All right, follow him on Twitter at David Furones _ and catch his work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. What are you working on so folks can check you out, my friend?
Yeah, you got stuff on the site on Anthony Weaver, of course, new defensive coordinator hire, and just wrote a quick thing on the Pro Bowl. The Dolphins, 2-1 Tyreek hooked up for that touchdown. You know, they make regular season games look like flag football. An actual flag football game also looked like flag football. Second play of the game in what's really meaningless anyway. A little Pro Bowl exhibition, and then a little bit of an easy week, but might dive into a little bit more of what Anthony Weaver can bring, and then also the season awards coming up this year. So sort of leaning into that, and the Dolphins that are up for different things.
Got it. David, good stuff. We'll catch up on Thursday, my friend. Appreciate you as always.
Sounds good. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Welt Rheaume, bankruptcy, condo damage, criminal defense, business owner claims, commercial litigation, personal injury. They're there for you, man. 954-966-4646. Even if you don't need a lawyer right now. Listen, the consultation's free. If something happened to you yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, and you're like, man, do I have a case? You know, picking up the phone and dialing 954-966-4646 and asking for Jeff Welt is not an issue. It's free. And you can explain to them your situation. The consultation is completely free, and they'll tell you if you have a case or you don't have a case, if they can help you or they can't help you. And maybe you do need help, and maybe they can. One of our listeners the other day called. You know who you are. And you ran something through Jeff, and you had a case, but he didn't specify. He that wasn't one of his specialties. So what did he do? He gave you the number of a friend of his that's another lawyer that specializes in what you do. So the consultation, even if he can't help you and he thinks your case is special, he might have somebody else that he can lead you to, like he helped one of our listeners. Okay, we've had several of our listeners call him for hurricane damage, water damage, okay, bankruptcy, all right? I mean, all kinds of our listeners the last couple of years have called Welt Rheaume. Now, some of you, just save the number because you never know when you're going to need it. 954-966-4646. Call my man, Jeff.
This has been it.